I don't do the most, but I do a lot. I'ma make a toast, cause we still alive. No big, I feel like pop. I shoot a shot. I'm coming in hot.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to East Coast Rivals. Y'all know who we are. To my right, Jacob Southpaw Siesla. To my left, Scott Braveheart Baylor. I'm Michael McCormick. What's going on, boys?
It's been a little bit, but I'm ready.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm tired, but I'm fucking fired up to do this. Scott, what's going on with you, bud?
Nothing much, man. You know, just still recovering from this knee injury.
Oh, quit it. You're just fine.
For anybody who's out there listening, Scott's knee is perfectly okay. He actually went to the driving range today and hit some balls. Shanked all of them, but that's besides the story. His knee's doing great. Scott is still remote. He should be back in the studio here next week, and if he says otherwise, I will personally kick his ass.
I'm gonna kick his knee.
Otherwise,
the one that apparently hurts.
All right, Scott, let's actually throw it over to you, man. Let's get a 1-minute update on what's going on in baseball right now.
well, so far it looks like we're going to Game 3. We have the Tampa Bay Rays, which I picked to go to the World Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers because the Atlanta Braves can't fucking finish out of the series. So, as of right now, this series has the same likings of the Braves and the Dodgers in the NLCS. Both type of same offense and type of pitching. So I see this game, possibly the series going to Game 7. Right now they're 1-1. Charlie Morton's on the mound for Game 3. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to do this and going forward, especially with the Dodgers and the bullpen issues.
We're looking forward to seeing what happens. Next week when we sit down, we'll have ourselves a World Series champion, possibly. Jacob, over to you, bud. Let's transition away from baseball. Let's start talking boxing. Let me hear your what's next after the big fight we had a couple weeks ago.
So I mentioned it last week, was talking about how hyped I was on Lomachenko versus Lopez. It did almost 3 million views. If you watched it, you probably saw a hell of a fight. It was a hell of a fight. I was, even with my glasses on, still sitting on the floor right in front of the TV, probably blocking other people, whatever. I was amped for it. I was excited for it. It was a great time.
I'm not gonna lie, you looked like a little kid watching a Christmas movie with all of us sitting on the couch, and you were about 2 inches from the TV.
Absolutely, it was early Christmas for me because I love boxing and I love both those fighters. It was entertaining. Lopez came out and showed a lot of what he had in his arsenal that a lot of people hadn't seen before. The quickness, some of the defense, the ability to walk down his opponent and just, throw the jab, throw body shots, and not have to do too much and win the fight. Working on that sweet science. Lomachenko was disappointing. I know Scott had mentioned before when we were watching the fight that, we're used to Lomachenko starting slow, but not that slow. And out of the first 6 rounds, for sure, like in the bag, Lopez won 5 out of the first 6 rounds. You could argue maybe he won all 6 rounds. And then as the fight goes on, all the momentum, regardless of what Lomachenko did, all the momentum was with Lopez because of what he was doing. They fought Lopez's fight the entire fight. It was not a Lomachenko fight. So, Lopez wins by unanimous decision, 23 years old, undisputed, undefeated, unified, lightweight champion of the world. Again, it was an amazing fight, but now what's next? What's next for Lomachenko? What's next for Lopez? Starting with Lomachenko. To be honest with you, even though there's a lot of big names at 135, Devin Haney, Lopez, Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, all young guys with 0 losses, they don't want to fight a Lomachenko who has multiple losses, is a dangerous fighter, and has no belts. So why would they want to fight him? They don't. So to me, what's best for Lomachenko, if he can do it, if he can cut the weight, go back to 130. He started his career at 122, 126. So I'm sure he's a smaller guy. He can probably fight at 130. He needs to move back down because a lot of the champions that are there, actually all 4 champions at 130, Leo Santa Cruz, Miguel Berchelt, Emmanuel Navarrete, actually Navarrete's at 126, sorry. But Jamel Herring, a couple of those other guys, they already have losses. So they don't care about protecting their undefeated record. They just care about fighting the best names and making money. Well, Lomachenko, we know, has marketing power. We know fans will want to fight him, or the fans will want to see Lomachenko fight any of those guys. So those guys can still get a good payday. Lomachenko has a chance to fight for a belt, but I don't think he has that shot at 135 anymore, because the guys at 135 represented.
Did he lose?
What?
Did he lose all his belts?
Yeah.
Did he lose all of his
Everything.
belts? I thought he did. I didn't know
No.
that. I did not know that.
It was to unify the entire division. Lopez had one belt, and then Lomachenko had 3 of the other 4. So it's a unified, there's one champion at 135, and that's Teofimo Lopez. So he has no belts. He has nothing.
Okay.
The only bargaining power he has is the fact that some people, he's still a big name. So it comes with money. And Garcia, who's repped by Oscar De La Hoya, Devin Haney, repped by Eddie Hearn, and Gervonta Davis, repped by Floyd Mayweather, those guys aren't going to let those young fighters put their undefeated record on the line against Lomachenko, especially when it's not for a belt. They're only going to get in the ring if it's Teofimo Lopez. If you're going to put your undefeated record on the line against a dangerous fighter, you might as well fight the guy with the belts. Now, flipping to that, the guy with the belts, Teofimo Lopez, what's next for him? Hopefully, it's Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, those young fighters. They're all under 24 years old. So you got to be thinking for the next 10 years, these guys could be fighting each other at 135, 140, 147. We should be having trilogy fights with these guys. They're all superstars. They're all big names. They all have all the charisma, the knockout power, all that stuff. Hopefully that's what's going to happen. But this is where boxing politics comes into play, because none of those fights are going to happen, at least right now. Teofimo Lopez, what he's going to end up doing, this is my prediction, he's going to defend his belts, I should say, at 135 against some veteran, a decent name, but a guy he's going to beat. And then he's going to hold his belts at 135. He's going to move up to 140, and he's going to fight for the undisputed unified championship at 140. And he has a clear path to it, because right now, Top Rank, Bob Arum, promotes all of those guys at 140, the 2 champions at 140, and he promotes Teofimo Lopez. So in March, April, May, that's when the 140 weight class is going to unify. And then Lopez is going to fight at the same time against somebody at 135, make a title defense, all that. And then he's going to move up to 140 and be the first ever, attempt to be the first ever, which I think he will, be the first ever in the 4-belt era to be an undisputed unified champion at 2 weight classes at the same time. And that's when you can start saying Teofimo Lopez, pound for pound, potentially number 1, because no one else has ever done what he might do. So that's what I think is next potentially for Lopez. He has a clear path to it with all the same promoters, all the same network. There's no cross network where fighting on DAZN or fighting on ESPN or Showtime, which is usually what ruins fights. So I can go on and on and on about boxing. I'm going to stop right there because I think I've talked too much about it.
I just got to ask one thing. The way you're talking and the way the tone of your voice talk about Lomachenko, you make it sound like some of the experts are saying, that his career may be over, because nobody wants to face him and put their undefeated record against him. So how does he get back into the title watch if nobody's going to try to put their undefeated record up against Lomachenko?
Which is why I say he goes back down to 130, because those champions at 130 already have losses. Gary Russell Jr. is a champion at 126. His only loss of his career is to Lomachenko. So he wants to avenge that loss. I don't think Lomachenko can drop down to 126 at this point. Maybe it's possible, but Gary Russell could definitely move up to 130. So that could be a fight for a belt. So there are guys that
want a rematch.
Gary Russell is still a very good fighter. Lopez is still a very good fighter. It'll still be entertaining. It might not be like the marquee matchup that we all want, but Lomachenko's not going to get those because, again, No one with an undefeated record is going to put that on the line for a guy who doesn't have any belts. You know, if you're gonna fight a guy with no belts, they're just gonna keep on, you know, the treadmill of the guys that aren't that good. They're just gonna keep fighting those guys until they get the big fight for all the belts. So
kind of like the Conor McGregor effect in a way, because once Conor lost, nobody really wanted to face him. The only reason why they wanted to face him now is for money. So,
yeah, unless there's a lot of money
not
involved. Unless there's a lot of money involved, then yeah, somebody will fight Lomachenko. But that's why I think he should also move down to 130, because also, again, Bob Arum in Top Rank, he represents a lot of the 130 pounders. You know, all those names that I mentioned before, Jamel Herring, Carl Frampton, Miguel Burchell, they're all represented by Bob Arum. So those are easy fights to make. They're for a guy who is a current champion and wants to fight the best, and Lomachenko wants the belts. He wants to fight the best as well. So I think it's going to be easier for him to make fights, big fights, going back down to 130.
Well, we'll see what happens, but let's transition away from boxing right now, and let's go into our favorite segment here. We got big news updates to talk about this week in the NFL. Things are getting stirred up, but let's go ahead and start off with the big man, Dez Bryant. He's back in the NFL, almost. Dez Bryant, today, sources tell me, was signed by the Ravens practice squad. Guys, what are your initial thoughts here in that he's signed with a practice squad, being Mr. Dez?
Well, Dez Bryant has been trying to prove himself ever since the Dallas Cowboys let him walk in free agency a couple years ago. He tried out for New Orleans, got the job, and then tore his Achilles. Ever since, he's just been looking for a tryout almost. And the Ravens are giving it to him. I think he's earned it with his pedigree, his career. I think it's actually good for the Ravens, because when you look at the Ravens receiving corps, a lot of young guys. So why not bring in a veteran who's been there, has done a lot, accomplished a lot? Maybe you can teach them a thing or two.
I feel like they don't have a solid number two. You know, it's mostly Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. And maybe this may help, because we've been very critical of Lamar Jackson's passing abilities and stuff like that. I'm not trying to make excuses, but he mostly just throws to Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. That's all he has, or that's all he trusts right now. So, like you said, it's good to bring in a veteran like that to teach these guys the ways of the game and stuff like that. I'm rooting for him. I was rooting for him when he signed with New Orleans. It was just like, damn, you tore your Achilles on the first day of practice. It just sucks.
Yeah, that was bad.
I always felt like, even when he left the Cowboys, like, why are you letting this guy walk? Why isn't anybody coming after him? Like, he's still a decent wide receiver. So we'll hopefully root for him. Only Raven I'm rooting for. So
He was arguably one of the best receivers when he was playing. So the fact that he got signed to a practice squad, I think, is for two reasons. First reason is it's going to kick the ass of the rest of the wide receiving core of the Baltimore Ravens to get in shape, because we're bringing in Dez Bryant. And B, because they're going to pull him up from practice squad in 2 weeks. Maybe 3 at most. He's not going to last longer than a month. He's going to be starting before December. I mean, and he's probably gonna tear it up in Baltimore. So we'll see what happens. Just made a strong team stronger. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the possibility of making a strong team stronger, psychopath Antonio Brown, if you can call him that, his suspension's almost up. And once the suspension's up, a team can sign him. And there's some small talks about him going to multiple different teams. Again, these are coming from invalid sources. We don't really know where he's going. But what is your guys' initial thoughts of where or who Antonio Brown is going to be coming out of the suspension and the 1 year of complete mayhem? Scott, we'll start with you.
I take it as there was multiple teams. I think Baltimore's kind of out of the running now since they signed Dez Bryant. At least in my eyes, they still could possibly sign him. The Texans were linked to him at one point, especially the way their season's going. I don't know if they'll sign him. New England's always going to be there. They're linked to every wide receiver known to mankind. They need firepower, but the biggest one is Seattle. Seattle's been the number one place they've said it without actually saying it, that they are very, very interested in Antonio Brown. Will this be a good move for them? I don't know. We haven't really heard anything out of Antonio Brown. Been laying low, hopefully getting the help that he needs mentally. And it may help them, but it also may hurt them because the same reason why he was let go in Pittsburgh is we brought Juju in and people started giving the ball, Ben started throwing the ball to Juju, taking away passes from Antonio, and Antonio didn't like that. Is Antonio willing to become a team player in Seattle, knowing that more of the passes are probably going to go to DK and Lockett? Or is that going to cause friction? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But you can't deny his ability. It's more or less, is he in the mental right landscape to be part of the NFL and be a team player again is the biggest thing that worries me.
My take on this is I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Seattle is going to sign him. Partly for the fact that they're undefeated right now. They've got a good thing going. Why bring in a guy who's been notorious for being a locker room problem? It makes no sense. And yeah, you've got a great leader in Russell Wilson and a great coach in Pete Carroll. But again, why change that? You've got DK. You've got Tyler Lockett. You've got some other guys that are filling in. The running game is solid. Greg Olsen, some of the other tight ends are doing enough. The defense just has to get better. And they're going to be just fine offensively. We know they're fine offensively with Russell. I just don't see the need for it. And when you look at Antonio Brown, back on September 12th, I believe it was when they had the initial hearing for the ongoing incident about the sexual the allegations, the sexual assault. He was expected to turn over all of his evidence to the league and to the attorneys, and they're supposed to have a hearing in December. Well, it's not a done deal that he's going to be reinstated after this 8-game suspension. But we all know this is how the media likes to stir things. We're at week 7. Week 8, he's off suspension. Who's going to sign him? They're just stirring the pot. They're throwing things out there. I just don't see it happening, especially to a team. I don't see it happening to a team like Seattle when they don't need to. They're undefeated. What? It makes no sense to me why you would bring in a headache other than maybe to give you an edge. You already have the edge. You're undefeated. Just stay healthy and you're fine.
32, 33? He'll be 33 next season. Do you think possibly next year after they wait this season to figure out how his legalities go?
Yeah.
Showing that he's getting the mental capability and he's still willing to be a team player. Because no matter where you go, you have to be a team player. It can't just be all about AB. Even though he's a freak different athlete, that's what he could not figure out in Pittsburgh. Because we could be something special, even greater than what we are, if we added Juju. And he never accepted that concept at all. It was all about him and nobody else.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time seeing Antonio Brown coming back and just righting all his wrongs and having a great season this year, next year, whatever it may be. I mean, his what's the word I'm looking for? His reputation is tainted. I mean, that's been a given since before he even went to New England. And as Jacob said, he's a locker room problem. He's a publicity problem for any team that decides to sign him. If he can truly come out and make a statement that his shenanigans are done, he apologizes to everybody that he wronged, whether it's real, fake, or what have you. If he can go out and right his wrongs and then strictly focus on football, he could have a great comeback. He could have a great career. But I don't really see that happening, unfortunately. And B, I don't see a team that would want to deal with it.
I agree.
Hold on. The best part is you keep talking about Seattle, and you keep talking about how Seattle might take him. I think Seattle's the last place that they're going to go because they don't deal with that shit. That's the reason the Legion of Boom got broken apart. is because there was too many me's on that team and they destroyed it. And then look at them now, they're undefeated. I think the best team that he could go to right now and be the most help at, ironically enough, is Las Vegas. If he would have just stayed in Oakland, their team would be so much better. But he decided to do his thing. He decided to try to play for Belichick and Brady. That didn't work out because of all the other shit. And I don't see him making a comeback in the NFL.
And that's the thing, again, in
December.
December.
Blackballed yourself. It kind of, well, the craziest thing is he went to New England where he's like, oh, I finally get to go to New England. I'm free. And then he gets kicked off the team. And then he calls out Robert Kraft. Like, you're burning bridges as you go to possibly whenever this shit gets over with. You just took off the president of the league, basically, the godfather of the league.
I mean, I don't know if I'd call Kraft the godfather. I mean, what does he have? Only 6 rings?
I would.
Anyway, let's get away from Antonio Brown and let's talk about players that are actually in the league and who are getting the start on Sunday. I'm kind of shocked by this news. Found out earlier this week that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be getting the start for the Miami Dolphins over Ryan Fitzmagic. I don't know how to. I'm indifferent on this. I mean, obviously Tua is a wonderful quarterback, but Fitzy's playing great. Why pull him out now? I don't get it.
I don't get it either. They're 3-3. They're second place in the division. They're still in the playoff hunt. Why risk putting Tua in a position where he's still coming back from the hip injury. Who knows if that's 100%? Maybe he is 100%. We won't know. But to me, the only reason that they are doing this is that maybe they feel Tua is much better than Fitzpatrick. And now that they're in this part where they're 3-3, and now they're like, well, we have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. Tua is a better quarterback for us and is going to make us a better team. Let's run with it. That's the only thing I can think of that makes sense, because again, if you're sitting a guy, if Fitzpatrick's meant to be the bridge guy, but you're winning games, there's no reason to make that switch unless it's like, okay, light bulb, let's flip the switch, let's try to win, and let's do it with our franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a risky call, I feel like, right now. And I mean, today's week 7, but it feels early in the season to make a move like this. Fitzy's playing well. Tua comes in. Tua comes out flat. What do you do from there? I mean, you put Fitzmagic back in? I mean, if he goes back in and he starts playing like week 5 Tampa Bay Bucks a couple years ago, I mean, you're fucked, basically. Because what are you going to do? Then put Tua back in and see where it goes? I don't really understand. I don't really understand the decision. But Scott, maybe you have a different take on it.
I feel like let's kind of think about this. Tua's first starts against Los Angeles Rams and Aaron Donald. That's not a game that you want to start a rookie quarterback at, especially the one coming off a hip injury. So that's their first game against the Los Angeles Rams and Aaron Donald. Number 2, Illinois was just on the Pat McAfee show a few weeks ago and said how all the veterans love Ryan Fitzpatrick. And the way that he found out was not from the coach or the owner or anything. He found out from one of his son's friends through a text message that it got leaked out. And that head coach is pissed about that. They didn't even have time to address the team about that. So that's going to cause some conflict already in there, where the veterans were behind Ryan Fitzpatrick. And it's not Tua's fault, but I think their mindset is that they feel like Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're only going to get 8 good games out of him. And that he's been known to have a decline after those 8 games. But I don't know. I think it's going to cause more of a conflict than what we're seeing right now amongst the players in the way they did it. So it's just going to be interesting to feel. And it's even more pressure on Tua now when the team is more supporting of the backup quarterback than a rookie quarterback.
I don't know about them being more supportive of Fitzpatrick. I mean, I know, Van Noy went on the show and he said that. But did you not see the ovation that Tua got when he got into the game? Fitzpatrick was all about, lifting his hands up, saying,
his first game since his hip injury.
After every throw, every player came back to him and started hitting him. even when he was handing the ball off,
He threw 2 passes.
everyone was still going right to him and high-fiving him and celebrating with him. That's not because it's a charity thing of like, oh, he's back from an injury. They are behind Tua as much as they were Fitzpatrick. If anything, they might be more behind Tua because they know what the future is coming.
No, they're not. They're behind. They understand it. That's good. The Tua had 2 passes and he handed the ball off against a junior varsity team. That's great. And it's his first back from his first game since his hip injury. You're going to be proud of the hat for that guy. But eventually he was going to be the starter next season.
Not necessarily.
You're playing great ball right now. You're playing. Why would you bench a guy where you're 3-3 right now and he's fucking doing great?
Because you're 3-3. I mean,
Because you're 3-3 and you know he's going to explode and you have a chance to actually make the playoffs. So put the better guy in.
We don't know that. You don't know.
That's why they spent the first round pick on him because they're betting that he is. I agree with you. I don't agree with it at all. I don't think they should have done it.
I think it was bad.
However, I'm playing devil's advocate here and saying why it makes sense or why the logic of why they're doing it. It sucks that somebody from the team leaked it before they could tell Fitzpatrick. Yeah, like the way. But again, we're talking about the Miami Dolphins here. They're as bad of an organization as the New York Jets. Terrible organization. They're never run right. It's a joke all the time. But that's just, there's no other explanation of it other than they're a terrible organization and shit like that happens all the time.
I tell you what. Listen, what we're going to do in 3 weeks from now when we have our next podcast, we're adding to the script of what we're going to discuss, and it's going to be, has the Tua prospect, has this whole thing panned out, yes or no? And we'll talk about it.
In 3 weeks they have a bye week, only 2 games. We're going to evaluate a guy off of 2 games?
All right, so we'll give it 4 weeks. We'll give him 3 games.
Especially his first game was against the Rams and Aaron Donald. And I don't think that's a good first game for a rookie quarterback.
Well, that's why I guess that's also why they made the announcement now, so they have the bye week with him taking all the first team reps.
Yeah, but other than that, why wouldn't you make it? Other than it getting leaked, you should also hold that announcement as late as possible for strategy purposes because the Rams would have prepped for Fitzmagic.
How are they going to prep for Tua when he's got no snaps in the NFL?
At least they're going to know who's in the backfield. They're going to work on someone who can run the ball faster and more agile than
Tua doesn't run that much.
If I'm both of y'all, all right, let me ask you this question. If you're Ryan Fitzpatrick, I want to get y'all's opinion. Do you ask for a trade thinking that you could go and help the team out?
Right now, no.
Somewhere else?
No.
He's played on what, 8 teams? He's fine.
Fitzpatrick's not like that.
Yeah.
He is going to be. He's going to be a huge supporting. Like he did it with Winston in Tampa. He's doing it in Miami with Tua. He's going to be the biggest cheerleader. He's a true professional, and that's what happens when you move around to 8 different teams. He becomes professional. He learns the ins and outs of it. He's going to be the biggest cheerleader. He's going to be helping Tua the entire way. He knew when he went to Miami that that's what his job was. That's what his role was to be the instructor or the teacher or the whatever you want to call it. He knew that was going to happen.
When you've played for that long,
I think it would have been.
When you've played for that long for so many teams, you get to the point where you understand what your role is in the NFL, and you're just happy to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it would have been less heartbreaking if he was playing like dog shit.
Oh, absolutely, and it would have made more sense.
Yeah, and I like I said again, I agree with you completely. Fitzpatrick should still be the starter, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, let's get away from Miami Dolphins and their quarterback situation. Let's start talking some other quarterback situations around the league. We're sitting here talking about a high first-round draft pick who's supposed to be the next face of the franchise. I feel like we got 3 quarterbacks who were drafted in the past 3 years who were supposed to be the face of the franchise, and I don't think that's panning out. So let's start talking Sam Darnold. Let's talk Carson Wentz, and let's talk Baker Mayfield. 3 guys who came in with pretty damn high praise into the league. One of which showed his way that he is an elite quarterback and then was plagued with injuries. Another who you could say didn't get the right opportunity with the right team. And then another one who sees ghosts. So let's go ahead and get started.
I thought you were going to talk about Sam Darnold, the right opportunity, the right team.
No, I was talking about Sam Darnold. I was just kidding. Go ahead.
So these 3 quarterbacks, I feel like Carson Wentz, you have a contract that nobody's going to be able to take. Maybe Minnesota will look into that because their Kirk Cousins situation is just god awful out there. But Carson Wentz, to me, he's been plagued by injuries, and now he's on a team where the entire rest of the team's been plagued by injuries, and he's doing way too much to try to win games and try to make something happen for that franchise. And then he always gets the finger pointed at him because he's the franchise quarterback. But you look at the game tonight. They have over 10 players on IR right now. He gets he gets Deshaun Jackson back tonight and Lane Johnson back. But he's down to his second string running back who loses his tight end. They're not giving him the good cast. I feel like they should have drafted Justin Jefferson at the wide receiver position to give him a weapon. And they don't have Godwin, the guy that they made a trade for San Francisco. Or is it right?
Yeah.
Godwin, right? That's his name.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
I feel like then.
And then Baker Mayfield. Here's a guy where they have a great running game whenever Nick Chubb's back. And their offense is mostly going to be Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. And all he's got to do is hand off the ball and not turn it over. Do you give a guy an extension like that? Or do you say this experiment with Baker Mayfield, he's doing more damage to the franchise than anything else? Because to me, he doesn't really sound believable as a quarterback. He doesn't sound confident. He says all this stuff, but he doesn't show it out there on the field. And then with Sam Darnold, this kid, he got into a situation where you feel like it was doomed from the beginning. He's got, how many different offense coordinators does he have? Jacob?
That's why he's been every year other than this, basically the past two, but what?
Yeah. So how do you get someone to get comfortable with an offense if you're switching it up every year right now? And they don't really have any weapons around him either. They have Crowder, but Crowder's not really an elite wide receiver.
He's been hurt.
So and then they misused Le'Veon Bell this entire time when he was in New York. So it's going to be interesting offseason what they do with these three quarterbacks. Especially you have a contract you can't move. You have Sam Darnold where you're just like, didn't really give this kid a fair shake and a fair team to work with. And Baker, do we want to keep with somebody who costs us games more that helps us win games? So
It's almost like a kill one, marry one, date one kind of thing. Like, what?
All right, yeah, answer that. Okay, go ahead, answer that. Answer. Fuck one, kill one, marry one. Go.
I will marry Carson Wentz. I would fuck Sam Darnold and kill Baker Mayfield.
All right. I don't know if I'd agree with that.
I'm not going to answer those questions. But that's like the only analogy I can think of it when it comes to this because
Start one, utility, bench one.
yeah, I mean, all three of these quarterbacks we know are talented, but they've all been in situations that aren't, even though on the surface they might look good, they haven't always been. Carson Wentz, for example, led his team for 13, 14 weeks of the year to being one of the best teams in the league. Nick Foles takes over, they win a Super Bowl. Carson Wentz then started dealing with all the injuries, and now all the role players and all the players around him are getting injuries. They still did a pretty good job of bringing in receivers. Even though I know they didn't draft Justin Jefferson, but they drafted Jalen Reagor. He's hurt. The Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, two very good tight ends. Both of them have been hurt throughout the year. Deshaun Jackson's been hurt. Alshon Jeffrey's been hurt. You can't do anything. Sam Darnold knows. You can't do anything when you have no weapons to throw to. So he's definitely been trying to do too much. I think we've talked about this before in the podcast. I think the play calling has been terrible because they're trying to air it out deep all the time instead of utilizing a good running back, utilizing the tight ends, and doing what they did to get to the Super Bowl. They didn't throw the ball 40 times a game. They were a little more dynamic. Mm-hmm. So Carson Wentz, he's got a contract that you can't move. I still think they can win the division. It's a spoiler alert. Might talk about that a little bit later. But I don't.
Spoiler alert.
I don't think I don't think Carson Wentz is going anywhere. I think he'll be the starting quarterback next year in Philly. I know they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round this past year, but I think he's going to be more of a project and maybe more of a wildcat and a gadget player that can help them at times, at least for the time being. Sam Darnold hasn't gotten really a fair shake, but he also hasn't gotten better in my eyes. Now, that's hard to really analyze because, again, he hasn't gotten a fair shake. He's played behind terrible offensive lines. He's played with virtually no good receivers. He's played with a running back that was not utilized the way he was at Pittsburgh, and what is the reason why we paid him to begin with. So, to me, the future of Sam Darnold, I think they will add on the extension for the 5th year. I think they've already accepted that. Not really sure. If they have the number 1 pick, if Trevor Lawrence goes pro, which in my eyes he's probably not because the Jets are snake bitten and they're just going to be like, I'm not going to play there. Roddy White came out this week and was like, if I was Trevor Lawrence and the Jets had the number 1 pick, I'd stay in school. Peyton Manning did the same exact thing. Peyton Manning was supposed to be the number 1 pick after his junior year. He decided to stay another year because he would have gone to the Jets. His dad said no. Same thing. It's the same thing that's going to happen again. So now the thing with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, even though they haven't played well, if they are going to be the guy that stays, the team can sign them to a 2-3 year extension where it's not necessarily too long term, but at a fairly good price because they haven't proven anything. They're not the franchise guy. They still have to prove it at the next couple of years. So it's almost an extension of maybe what their rookie contract is, maybe a little bit more money. But so Darnold hasn't gotten a fair shake, and potentially Baker has been. You were talking about Darnold with the offensive coordinators. Baker's done the same thing. He's had three head coaches in his 4 years, so it's the same thing. All new offenses. Yeah, he's got the playmakers and he's got the offensive line. But when the terminology every year is changing, the plays are changing every year, the play calling is changing every year. That's hard to deal with. Baker Mayfield is a system quarterback. We saw him start for 4 years at Oklahoma. And by the time he was a junior senior, he was lights out because he had the same system to work through and develop. I don't know if that's going to translate to the NFL because we see system quarterbacks all the time not always work out. And I think we're figuring out that Baker is potentially one of them as well. But I think he hasn't had a fair shake either because of the nonstop changes.
I'm gonna come flat out and just say all 3 teams. If you are talking about these 3 quarterbacks and what that team should do moving forward, all 3 of these teams do not need to get rid of these quarterbacks. All 3 of these teams can build a better organization around them. The problem is they don't have a good organization around them. The team that's doing the best right now, obviously, is Philly. Philly's got good players around Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is easily, if you ask me, the best of the 3 quarterbacks we're discussing right now. The big hang-up is his injuries, and I had a problem with the fact that the Eagles decided to draft a quarterback in round 2 this year's draft. But if you really think about it, who can you compare Jalen Hurts to in the rest of the NFL? He's Taysom Hill 2.0.
I think he's more Dak Prescott.
But he's not a starting quarterback. I'm telling you right now, they're putting him in a situation as similar to a Taysom Hill, where they're going to use him as a decoy. They're going to run him. They're going to pass to him. They're going to have him throw the ball. They're going to have him do everything. Now, is he going to be running down on kickoffs like Taysom does? No. But he's going to be used as a Swiss Army knife in that offense. So I think that's working out a lot better than we think. And then obviously if Carson, since he's been plagued with injuries, does get hurt, it's a good backup. Philly, you're doing all right. Looking at Cleveland and Baker Mayfield, them taking Baker first overall was not a bad move for them. The bad move was trying to put a superstar team around him like they're trying to build an NBA super team. They went out and tried to get all these different players that they could put around him, but they didn't factor in the fact that the NFL is one of the biggest team sports there is, and all of those different personalities are causing so many problems. Odell Beckham Jr., bringing him to the Cleveland Browns, everybody thought that was going to be a lights-out connection. The reason it's not is because of personality and attitude, not football ability. Bringing in Kareem Hunt, everybody thought Kareem Hunt was going to take off. He plays second to Nick Chubb, who is a second-year player. Now, he's going to have more opportunities now that Chubb's out for the rest of the year, but honestly, he hasn't really done anything that impressive so far with Cleveland. I just think if they can get together and work as a unit, they could be more impressive than they are. I mean, we can talk about their defense later, but we're just talking about the quarterbacks. And then, unfortunately, like I said earlier, I was joking about the ghost thing. Sam Darnold got put into a situation to fail, unfortunately. There's no way around it. He got put into a team where it's almost impossible for him to excel unless he is the whole team. And as good of a quarterback as he is, he's not a Patrick Mahomes who could make a tree look good by throwing it right. I mean, this man, if they could put some solid receivers around him and an O-line that can block for more than 2 seconds,
It'll be fine.
they will be absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. But everybody needs to stop leaving New York. Everybody needs to stop acting like that is the asshole of the NFL, because it's not.
I mean, if you're talking about the Giants, it is.
Detroit's happy. Detroit's happy about that.
Exactly. I mean, I just saw an article the other day about a defensive tackle who got traded, and he now plays for the Bucks while they were in Miami. And he got in his car and drove from Miami to Tampa and talked about how happy he was to get out of the organization. Why? Build where you're at.
I'm engaged in anything else.
Well, he got traded to a Super Bowl contender, so who wouldn't be happy?
Well, I get that, but making it sound like he couldn't wait to get out of New York, that's a stretch. No, you can't wait to get to a playoff contending team.
Yeah.
You have to
especially
change
as
the
a veteran
culture
too.
Because you have to change the culture because Adam Gase's culture right there.
No,
he stinks.
He'll be fired.
He's terrible.
He's going to be fired. He's not going to be the coach of the team next year.
We can all agree that all 3 teams this offseason are going to have a big whiteboard with a pros and cons list for each quarterback.
Well, I mean, that's easier for the Browns and the Jets. The Eagles, they're stuck with that big contract. So
Yeah, and again, like I said, I'd honestly be close to putting money down and saying all 3 of those quarterbacks will be the starting quarterbacks next year, barring any ridiculous injuries.
I mean, Darnold might be the starter, but he's not. If they go 0-16 and Trevor Lawrence goes pro,
They're
the
gonna pick up
Jets are
Trevor
taking him
Lawrence.
number 1.
Yeah.
And they might use Darnold for that bridge quarterback. So, yeah, he might be the starter, but Lawrence will be the future.
We'll see. All right, let's get away from
And
it.
then how does that help Sam Darnold? Sorry.
It doesn't. He becomes a second-string quarterback in the league, but I mean, if a team signs
He
him as a
becomes
second
the
string,
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
well, you never know. I mean, that's the crazy part about the NFL. You could come in off being one of the best players in college and not even make any sort of an impact in the NFL.
It happens all the time.
It happens
Jameis
all the time.
Winston and Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
Same thing.
All right, guys, let's talk last week though. Any big games, any big teams, any players stand out to you? Jacob, we'll start with you.
So my standout is not a winner of last week, but it's the Philadelphia Eagles. But it's in the positive light, silver lining. The first 2 games of the year, they didn't look good. They lost. Then they got a tie. Then they got a win over the 49ers. I know the 49ers are injured. But the last 2 games, they played tough opponents, and they've had close losses. They get to play the Giants tonight. They get to play the Cowboys, who looked terrible without Dak. And they get to play the Giants again. So they might be able to pull off 3 consecutive wins here because they've been playing decent football. Maybe 3 consecutive wins here, and just like that, they're in first place in the division.
I was going to say, that's 3 consecutive division wins right there.
Yeah. So Philly, even though they lost last week, they played well. They played well the week before, only losing by, it was 8 to the Steelers. It was like 37-29, 37-28. So they're playing decent football. Now they get 3 consecutive games that are very winnable games for them. Hey, they might be controlling that division.
All right, Scott.
My team I want to talk about is the New England Patriots. And this is not me being negative or anything like that, but it's just what I've seen watching that game on Sunday. Their defense is still really good. Their secondary is arguably the best secondary in the NFL. They are lacking a little bit of a pass rush. Michael told me that they're getting some players back. That should change possibly. Offensively, they need to do something a little bit different because they're coming one-dimensional, where it seems like Cam Newton is looking to run before he can pass, before he gets the ball. And then when he does pass, he's slinging it 1,000 miles per hour. And I don't know if this is lack of weapons, lack of trust there with the players, or what it is. But I'm going to go out and say it's still early, but Sunday it's almost one of those type of must-win games because you're 2-3 right now. You go 2-4 if you lose to San Francisco. That's not a good look right now, and that's hard to correct from because we're just not used to seeing Belichick Patriots play like this. I'm not saying that they just change and they could go on to win the division possibly or make the playoffs anyway. But Sunday is starting to seem like it's going to possibly have to be a must-win game to avoid going 2-4.
We'll see. Cam was off for 3 weeks, or didn't play a football game in 3 weeks. So, I mean, could have been some rust too. So, again, not making excuses. We'll see. My team I want to talk about is the Tampa Bay Bucks. They embarrassed the Packers. Embarrassed. Aaron Rodgers' biggest mistake of the game was having the Hingle McCringleberry celebration on the sideline, doing the 3-pump. Because after that, there was no flair on their team, and they couldn't do a damn thing. Tom Brady and those Buccaneers just completely wiped the floor with them, and they are moving. I'll be curious to see if they can continue it on. I'll be curious to see if they can keep it going because we have seen them come out in some games like losing to the Chicago Bears where they came out flat, played the whole game flat, and ended up losing to a team they were supposed to beat. But if they play like they came out against the Packers, who we were talking about that week being the number 1 team.
I did not.
All of us had that. I believe all of us had them to win the game except for maybe Scott.
Yep.
They just came out there and got embarrassed by the Bucks. See where it goes. Let's talk Week 7. Any big matchups you guys are looking at?
Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Someone's O has got to go in that game. And these are potentially an AFC title game that we're looking at right now. Titans, what they have going on right now, if they somehow come into Pittsburgh and beat Pittsburgh on the road, they may be considered even better than the Chiefs. And they could be the AFC powerhouse. And on the other hand, if Pittsburgh wins, their defense is playing phenomenal right now. Their secondary looks good. I know they lost Devin Bush, but the backup, it wasn't like when they lost Ryan Shazier. He wasn't the main focal point, but the backup they had he came in, did pretty well. So other than that, it's just going to be a great powerhouse matchup at 1 o'clock to see this. And it's probably not going to be the last time we see this matchup in the future.
All right. My Week 7 preview is same division as the Steelers, actually. The Browns play the Cincinnati Bengals. And the reason I'm excited for this game is because there's a good chance that the Cincinnati Bengals go in there and just wallop the Browns. And not that I'm rooting for that to happen.
You are.
But I'm rooting for that to happen. I would love to see the Cincinnati Bengals go in there and just destroy the Browns. The Browns are frail. They're dysfunctional. We just talked about Baker and how he doesn't have any camaraderie with his players. I mean, okay, not saying Eddie's a stretch, but it's not looking good. And the Bengals, they've lost a lot. But every game's been pretty damn tight, and they do not look bad. Joe Burrow is the deal.
So for me, I have the Saints and Panthers. I think these are two teams that are borderline playoff teams right now. Panthers being 3-3, Saints being 3-2. It's a battle for second place behind Tampa. You know, we all kind of picked the Saints to be the favorite. Obviously, Drew Brees has clearly had some rough patches. Not having Michael Thomas has made an impact. Still won't have Michael Thomas this week, now dealing with the hamstring injury. Panthers have been a little surprising. Very young defense. Teddy Bridgewater resurgence, playing against the team that he played for last year with the Saints. Matt Rule as a first-time head coach in the NFL, doing pretty good. I think that'll be an intriguing matchup. And who wins that game and takes that step forward as being the second-place team in that division.
Michael Thomas punched another player.
He may have. That's why.
That's the reason why he didn't play last week, because he punched one of his teammates in the face.
Ow. Oh, that sucks.
Oh, damn.
Cut myself pretty good.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. All right, you want to take a 2-minute break?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, guys, moving away from recaps and previews, let's talk pick'ems. It's our favorite segment. Do we have the scores?
No.
God damn it, we need to step up and get those for next week. I have no idea where the hell we are.
If anyone wants to go back and listen to the last 4 podcasts, I'll buy you a 12-pack of beer. That includes both of you clowns.
Make it 24.
I buy that for you all the time.
I'm not going back and listening to it. All right, guys, let's talk Thursday night. Game is currently, right now, it is 8:39 p.m., so game has started, but we don't have the TV on because that's just who we are. We want to pick this from our hearts. Starting off with the Giants and Eagles. Scott, who do you got?
Even with all the injuries, I'm going to go Philly.
Same. I got Philly. Carson Wentz, better quarterback. I think he gets the win.
Carson Wentz, better quarterback. Philadelphia Eagles, better team. Philly wins, double-digit scores. Nice. Let's move to Sunday at 1 p.m. Big game, 5-0 versus 5-0. Steelers, Titans.
I'll let Jacob go first.
Jacob, who you got?
I got the Steelers. I think their defense and their offense, the two of them together with how they've been playing lately is going to be too much for Tennessee. Their defense has not been that good. And what in a game that could be a shootout, I don't think Tennessee against a Steelers defense that has been playing very well, I don't think they get the job done. I got the Steelers.
All right, I'm going opposite. I got the Tennessee Titans. Sorry, Scott, I know you're upset, but Devin Bush being out and Derrick Henry being on the other side of the ball does not sound like a good matchup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, we will see what happens, and trust me, I've been wrong plenty of times before, but I'm seeing Titans pulling this one out. Scott, can I guess who you have?
Yeah.
All right, Titans.
No. Devin Bush being out. Everybody has talked about that all week. Great, phenomenal player. He is in his second season. It's going to be a huge loss, but the man that backed him up is a good linebacker as well. It's not a main focal point like what it was when we lost Ryan Shazier. Our front seven is arguably the best front seven in football. That defensive line, I'm not saying we're going to shut down Derrick Henry because no one's been able to do that. But to be able to contain him well enough to win the game, I think our defense can do it. And Tennessee Titans defense, they did give up a lot of points, a lot of big plays to the Houston Texans. A lot. So we'll wait and see about that, but I feel like I agree with Jacob. I think it will be a shootout. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter, but I have Pittsburgh by a field goal.
All right. Sunday, 4 p.m., Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Scott?
I'm going to continue on the train. Gruden going up against his old team. I think Tampa Bay, they are going to be there, and they're going to that defense with Tom Bowles in them. They're going to win this one.
I said it in my recap. I'm going to say it now. The Bucs are rolling, and the Bucs are going to continue to roll. They're going to roll right into Vegas, win some money, roll right out, win the game. What do you got?
Yeah, Tampa Bay is too much right now. They proved it last week with a dominant victory over the Packers. Raiders are shaky at times. They're inconsistent at times. And the Bucs are, we mentioned it in the very first podcast of football, they are getting better and better every single week. I got the Bucs.
All right. Let's stick with you. Sunday night game, 8 p.m., Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals.
I know the Cardinals looked impressive somewhat last week, putting up 30-plus points, but it was against the Cowboys. They can't guard a chair. I got Seattle in this one.
Doubling down with that one, I got Seattle as well. I think Arizona is a very impressive team, and I think this is going to be a very exciting Sunday night football game, and I'm looking forward to watching it. But I think Seattle's going to do what Seattle does. If you give them the ball in the fourth quarter, they're going to win.
Yeah, it'll be a high-scoring game, but I got Seattle.
I'm going to pick the Arizona Cardinals.
Ooh.
Going for upset alert.
All right.
I feel like with Murray, he didn't pass very well against the Cowboys, but Seattle's defense has given up a lot of points. They give up a lot of points to Kirk Cousins for some fucking reason.
27.
But
It's not bad.
All right, take it easy. So, Kyler Murray and that explosive offense, and their defense is a little bit better than what people give them credit for. But I haven't been in a high-scoring game, but I have the Cardinals pulling up the upset.
All right, buddy. Let's talk Monday Night Football game. This one, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this is a tough choice. We got the Chicago Bears versus the LA Rams. Scott.
The Rams, to me, have been very inconsistent. I think I don't know if Jacob agrees with that or not, but you just don't know what Rams team is going to show up. Next week, like 1 week, they are NFC contender. The next week, they look like absolute dog shit. So I'm not quite sure what team's going to show up. Big tripod Nick out there is slinging the fucking thing. And his speech after the game, where it made me want to run through a fucking wall and just be part of that team, I'm going with Chicago Bears in this one.
All right. It was tough. There goes puberty. All right. It's been a tough call. I've been going back and forth with this one for a while on who I want to pick, and my head's telling me Chicago, but my heart's telling me LA. So I'm gonna stick with my heart. I might be wrong. I mean, let's be honest. When has my heart ever told me the right thing? But I think LA Rams got them at least 7.
Yeah, the Rams have been inconsistent. So have the Bears. Bears have been inconsistent. I know they're 5-1, so by the record they don't look inconsistent. But when you watch them play, they're pretty inconsistent. But it's a primetime game. Nick Foles comes to play in primetime games. I got the Bears.
All right. So those are our pick'ems. Again, if you guys want to go back and tell us where we're at, it'd be great. No, I'm just kidding. We'll go check it out. We'll find out where we're at.
Yeah, eventually.
Our ranking.
Week 16, and we finally know who's in the lead. All right.
Exactly.
Let's talk top 5, boys. I feel like every week this whole thing gets jumbled.
It's gotta be 30 seconds. It's gotta be quick.
Gotta be 30 seconds. Give your team, tell why, move forward. Scott, how about this?
5.
Go right down the list. Instead of everybody doing 5, go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then we'll pass it on. Sound good?
5, I have the Packers, obviously, because their defense proved, once again, it was only a matter of time. Before that they were going to eventually cost them some games. Aaron Rodgers didn't play effective, but they'll bounce back. 4, I have the Bucks, with that defense on a roll with Todd Bowles and Tom Brady and Gronk getting more involved now. It's going to be a nightmare. And Ronald Jones, once again, 3 games in a row for 100 yards rushing. Number 3, I have the Chiefs. They had a good bounce back this game against the Bills, against Josh Allen and the boys. So we'll just wait and see how they're going to continue to grow. 2, Titans look phenomenal as always. They're going into Pittsburgh. We'll wait and see after that. Number 1 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their defense, we're facing a hot Browns team, a one-rush offense, and they shut that shit down and just destroyed Baker. When they're pulling the quarterback in the third quarter, not because he's hurt, because they're tired of seeing him get hit, you're doing something right. That's my top 5. Hammer it down.
It's full and fell.
I'm just a little shocked you don't have the Seahawks in there.
Yeah, I am too, actually. All right.
Yeah, it's only because they had a bye week. That's the only reason.
My top 5, starting with number 5, you can't argue with their stats. I know they lost a big game against the Chiefs, but the Baltimore Ravens are still sitting up there as one of the top teams in the AFC. Keeping the Baltimore Ravens at 5, we'll see what happens. Moving to number 4. Unfortunately, they did drop a little bit in my predictions, but the Seattle Seahawks. Number 4, my predictions. I mean, you can't argue against the team that hasn't lost, and you can't argue against a team that when they have the ball in the fourth quarter, they win the game. Number 3, Kansas City Chiefs. They have 1 loss on their record, but again, I think I spoke too soon taking the Kansas City Chiefs out of my top 5 because they came back, their defense shut down, and it was something unmatched. So they're going to stick in my top 5. Number 2, Pittsburgh Steelers. Every game I've watched so far has been unbelievably impressive, and they are rolling. But I think they're rolling pretty hard into my number 1, who is the Tennessee Titans. And I said it already, and I'm going to say it again. I think the Tennessee Titans are currently and will be the best team in the league. With that run offense and Derrick Henry, I see him running over the Steelers and keeping the Steelers at number 2. But we'll see.
Dick Riders, because you have him on fantasy.
So for my Power 5, I'm going to the Bucks at number 5, a 2-loss team, putting them in there.
Bucks making it to number 5.
they were higher on Scott's list, so I don't want to hear it. But but the offense is clicking. We said this before. Brady, as the season goes on, gets better and better, and they're just continuing to prove it. The defense, led by Todd Bowles, has been very impressive, especially what they just did with the Packers. Number 4, I got the Titans. I'm still not sold on them to a certain extent. I thought one of their strengths was their defense. Defense hasn't looked so great lately. And offensively, when you're a great running team, it sometimes can hurt you. And we'll see this weekend. If the Steelers' defense can shut down the running game and Tannehill cannot throw, maybe they get exposed a little bit there. But they're undefeated. They're playing well. I got them at 4. Seahawks I have at 3. They had the bye week, so they moved down a little bit. Again, they're still undefeated. They still have an MVP candidate. Defensively, you hope that they can make adjustments and get better as the season goes on. Chiefs I have at number 2. Big reason why I'm sticking them, keeping them there at number 2. Just a dominant performance against Buffalo. We talked about defensively. They show up one week, they don't show up the next. I know that 3 weeks ago, only gave up 20 points to the Ravens. 2 weeks ago, they gave up 40 to Oakland. Last week, they basically shut down the Bills, who are a team that's 4-2. So offensively, we know they're still very dynamic. And at number 1, I have the Steelers. To me, they're the most complete team on both sides of the football. I know maybe the Titans' run game is better. They have the more elite running back. But I think as an overall offense, I think Pittsburgh's still better. And then defensively, Pittsburgh's better than anybody when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. So that's why I have the Steelers at 1.
All right. I think that might be the most skewed our top 5s have been.
No, I think that was last week.
Yeah. I really feel like Mac is just attacking me and my team. He's attacking my team just because I said something negative about the Patriots. So.
Listen, but I'm not attacking the Pittsburgh Steelers at all. They're one of the best teams in the AFC, and they've consistently been one of the best teams in the AFC for 20 years. I mean, they're a wonderful organization, but I'm sorry I can't fight the way that I feel. And I know if I'm wrong, you're going to talk shit, and it's going to be great.
I can't fight this feeling.
All right, guys, let's get to our last segment real quick because we are well over time. What's your game to watch this weekend, guys?
I think it's pretty easy, even though we have Big Ten football back. I don't think there's really much going on in college football. We've got the World Series, but I don't have a horse in the race. You don't have a horse in the race. Scott doesn't have a horse in the race.
Thank you.
The game of the week to watch is what we're all probably going to say are the 2 unbeatens in the NFL, Steelers Titans.
All right, Scott, you in the same boat, or what are you thinking?
Gaethje versus Khabib. That's the fight that comes on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday because they're over there in Fight Island. That's going to be a good fight. Hopefully Khabib putting up his trying to go 29-0 against Justin Gaethje, another fellow wrestler with power. It should be the biggest test in Khabib's career, especially the first time without having his father in his corner.
We may not have a dog in the fight, but it's the World Series, man. We may not have a dog in the fight, but it's the World Series. And it's a damn good one so far. I mean, if you're a baseball fan, you watch the World Series. And I'm telling you what, it's Game 7.
You went to
Game
bed
7.
in Game 1.
Game 7. Yeah, I turned it on in my room.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
Listen, man, I'll be watching the World Series off today for the rest of the weekend. I mean, it'll be on in the background, of course. But that's how you watch baseball.
Nobody that lives in Tampa watches Tampa Bay Rays play, so don't worry.
I'm just trying to help get TV ratings up so they stop putting blackouts during the season. Anyway. Listen, guys, I'm Michael McCormick, Jacob Southpaw Siesla, Scott Braveheart Baylor. We are East Coast Rivals. We will talk to you next time.